So this question here focuses on our skills of straight lines and the properties thereof. Now, one thing we always have to remember when it comes to straight lines, as soon as you start talking about them, is the equation of a straight line. Now remember, the equation of a straight line is given by y equals mx plus c. Within that, the m represents our gradient, and the c would represent the y-intercept. Now, when it comes to calculating the equation of a straight line, there's a few sets of information they can give us. Firstly, they can give us the gradient and the y-intercept if they're feeling really nice. The second set of information they can give us is a generic point somewhere on the line, plus the y-intercept. Or the third one is just two random points anywhere along the line. Using that, we're able to calculate the gradient and work with them to fill in the gaps to get us the y-intercept. Now, when it comes to working at this level, what we're looking for is some key factors and properties that are associated with the lines that we're working with. Now for this one, the key thing we're looking at is this, the perpendicular bisector of PQ. Now when we see the words perpendicular bisector, there's two big things that should come into play. Firstly, we should remember what bisector means. Now bisect means cut straight in the middle, so cut at the midpoint of the line, and perpendicular means at a right angle to. Now, two lines being perpendicular means that we have the property m1 times m2 equals -1, where the m1 and the m2 are the gradients of the line. Now, using this will help us to be able to figure out the equation of this line, because using this information, we're able to get a gradient and we're able to get a point somewhere on the line. Now, let's imagine I've got the line PQ. So there's my point P, there's my point Q. And that there, let's call this M, that's the midpoint of the line. So that's where the perpendicular bisector cuts that line. Now to get the gradient, I'm going to need 2 points. I can figure out M from P and Q, but I don't have a second point on the perpendicular bisector. This is where this property here comes into play. If I can get the gradient of PQ, I can then find the gradient of the second line such that M1 times M2 is satisfied, and I'm able to use it from there. So, first things first, let's figure out M, our midpoint. So to do that, add up the x parts of the coordinates, half them, add up the y parts of the other coordinates, half them, and we have our midpoint. So I'd do -2 plus 10 over 2, and I'd do 6 plus 0 over 2. So that gives my midpoint of 4, 3. So that's where I know M is equal to. It's at 4, 3. So now I have the point. Second thing I do is now the gradient of P to Q. Now remember, for the gradient, we do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 for the points. So in this case, what I'm going to do is 0 take away 6 over 10 take away -2. So if I do 0 take away 6 over 10 take away -2, I get -6 over 12, so I get -1/2. Now remember, just because of the slope of the PQ, the way I've drawn it is a positive gradient, doesn't mean anything. I've just drawn that as a demonstration. So gradient of PQ is -1/2. What that then means is that the gradient of PQ times M2, which represents the gradient of the perpendicular bisector, is equal to -1. So from that, I get -1/2 times M2 is equal to -1. So I know the gradient of the perpendicular bisector is 2. Now I've got all the information I need. I can use all this and get my equation of my line. But I'm going to use a slightly different format to get it. I'm going to use the format y minus b equals m bracket x minus a. In this, the a and the b come from a point on the line, and the m is the gradient. So here I'd say y minus 3 equals my gradient 2 bracket x minus 4. And then I can just rejig this and move it about to get it in the format y equals mx plus c. So y minus 3 equals 2x minus 8. So y is equal to 2x minus 5. So there you go. That's me got the equation of that line and its perpendicular bisector. This question here would be worth 4 marks. You'd get 1 mark for getting this, your midpoint of the line. You'd get a second mark for getting your first gradient, so the -1/2. You'd get your third mark for getting the gradient of your perpendicular bisector, the m equal to 2, and you get your fourth mark for getting your equation of the perpendicular bisector itself. So there you go, 4 marks, questionnaire S, easy peasy, job done.